This video is brought to you by RecoverIt, the best data recovery software. Hey everyone, today I'm going to show you how to quickly and easily color correct your 16mm film scans in DaVinci Resolve, but don't worry, this works in Premiere Pro, this works in Final Cut, or pretty much any editing studio that you might be using. Before we jump into the color correction, I'm going to lay some groundwork, say a couple disclaimers to hopefully help you guys better understand the color correction process. But if you'd rather skip ahead straight to the color correction, you can do so via this little timestamp right here, or you can use the chapter markers that I've put in the video to find the part that's applicable to you. So first and foremost, if you haven't seen my video on how to shoot 16mm film, I'd highly recommend checking that out. It's a full in-depth guide start to finish, purchasing the camera, film stocks, how to load the camera, where to send the film to get developed and scanned. I'll put a link to that up here in the description below, but it's just a good tool if you're looking to get into 16mm in 2021. Now, secondly, the second disclaimer that I have to mention is because I am putting a video out on the internet in 2021 that contains some sort of information. I am not an expert. I am not a coloring expert. I am not a professional colorist, okay? You need to take everything I say today with a grain of salt because I know what I'm doing to a certain extent, but I'm sure there's better ways and more efficient ways of achieving similar results or better results than what I'll show you in today's video. But I can already see the keyboard warriors coming on here, the colorists out there coming out of their caves, and oh, your note tree is a disgrace. Just settle down, okay? If you'd like to provide some constructive criticism, some honest feedback in a polite way, you can do so in the comments section below. With that off of my chest, let's jump into DaVinci Resolve and get to the color correction. All right, so here we are in Resolve. You'll see I got 9 different film clips here, all shot on the Krasnogorsk 3 with the 17-69 Meteor lens. We got 50D and 500T. Those are the film stocks that we'll be color correcting today, all shot in kind of different lighting scenarios. 50D in the middle of the day, 500T at night under some tungsten light, underexposed a bit, 500T in daylight, which is a fun one to color correct because when you shoot tungsten balanced films in the middle of the day without the proper filter, you'll get this gnarly blue tint across the image, which looks a little bit daunting, but it's really a breeze to color correct. And then we got 500T under some mixed lighting, and then 50D in harsh midday light, and 50D kind of in the early morning or darker light. So let me preface this by saying I'm working in the Rec 709 color space. I'm not sure if that's the best, but I'm pretty sure it is for web distribution and whatnot. And it's just what works for me. And then my display is the Apple XDR 1600 nit display, set about 65-70% or so. And the one thing about this display on these new MacBook Pros is it's extremely vibrant, super saturated, very punchy contrast. So I have to take that into consideration when I'm editing this footage and coloring it because it's not going to appear the same way on something like a phone display or even some TV displays. So I'll actually over edit the footage when I'm editing on this display because I know it's going to be dulled down a little bit when people watch on their phones and when it's uploaded to YouTube and Instagram. So I'll really make the colors quite punchy. I'll make the saturation really vibrant. I'll overall just kind of make things a little bit more intense than I usually would on a normal display, and that's just something you have to take into consideration depending on the display that you're using. Or you can calibrate it and get everything situated and working perfectly, but I don't know how to do that, so I'm just rocking it with what I got. And I feel like this is what most people are going to encounter as well. All right, so now that that is all out of the way, let's talk about the actual scans themselves really quick. This is a log scan, 6.5K ProRes 4444, tons of information and data to work with in this scan. Basically, all we're trying to do is extract the life out of this film scan. All the information's there. We're just trying to reveal it. It's a very simple process. I get all my scans from Nicholas Coyle. His information will be in the description below. Absolutely fantastic work. I'd highly recommend him. And some of you might feel like you don't want to try to tackle color correction, when it comes to 16mm scans or log footage. It's really not as bad as you think. And DaVinci Resolve is free. You can do all this color correction that I'm going to do today for free with the free version of DaVinci Resolve. And not only is it just a good skill to have, it's fun. I find it therapeutic, to be quite honest with you. So let's jump in and start color correcting some footage. This all begins with heading over to a web browser, and I'll put this link in the description below, but go ahead and head over to this link. It's a LUT website, and we're going to download a conversion LUT. This is going to do about 85% of the work for us. So it's going to take that log image and basically convert it into a Rec 709 color profile. And they have this great free download of a bunch of different conversion LUTs. So we're going to click that button and then download these LUTs. All right, so once that's been downloaded, we'll double click it to unzip it. Might be a little bit different on Windows, this process right here, but it's basically the same idea. Got a bunch of folders in front of you. You're going to click the cube folder, and you're going to go to utility and then go to generic log to Rec 709. Ignore all the other folders, we just need this one. Go to U-9994 right here. This is the LUT that we're going to be using. I tested all these other generic log to Rec 709 LUTs, but the U994 U9994 or whatever is far and away the best one in my opinion, so we'll just use that one. So you're going to copy that, Command C, open a new Finder window. You're going to go to your disk drive and locate the DaVinci Resolve folder within this directory. So for me, that's library, application support, Blackmagic Design, DaVinci Resolve, and this is going to have our LUT folder inside of here. Click on that, paste that LUT into this LUT folder, and it'll be ready to go when we open up Resolve. So once that's done, if you have Resolve open already, go ahead and close it, open it back up. Once you're ready to start editing your footage, we'll head over to the color window. And this is when I said there's going to be some colorists out there that are probably very mad at me, it's because of this right here. I do everything with one node. So I just add one node, I apply the LUT to it, I do all the brightness and contrast in this one node. It looks fine to me, so I just rock with that. It's a simple, easy process, and I can copy and paste it along a bunch of different clips with similar lighting that were shot in a similar lighting situation. So that's the way that I do it, but like I said, take everything I say with a grain of salt. But here we go, let's dive in. First clip, 50D, middle of the day, beautiful colors here. So this was overexposed just a little bit. I'd recommend overexposing like 1 stop, 2 stops. Lewis Potts did a great video where he talks about the benefits of overexposing 16mm film.
I just found that if I start shooting a stop or even 2 stops overexposed, then once I bring it into Resolve, I would pull it all the way down, add contrast, and just by doing that simple approach, it gets you so much richness out of the image, and it gives you so much more out of the film scan.
Get a little bit more color out of it, a little bit more vibrance. It just feels a little bit more lifelike. So I like overexposing. This shot was overexposed by one stop, and all we're gonna do is get to our node here, right click, go to LUT, and then go down and find our generic log to Rec 709 LUT that we put in here. Mine's in a subfolder, but yours will be wherever you put it. And we'll go click that, and you can already see we have a lot of the color contrast and life back into this frame, and all we did was click a couple of buttons there. So now from here, all I'm really doing is brightening, playing with the contrast, playing with the highlights maybe, and then temp and tint. That's really all there is to it. It doesn't take a lot with most of these clips. So I do my brightening in the HDR tab here. I know a lot of people like to do it in the primaries, but I do it in the HDR. I feel like it retains a little bit more color information and doesn't give you as much of a washed out image. So make sure that these 3 are selected right here, these 3 color wheels, the 3 middle to the right. That's going to give you global, highlight, light, and shadow. I really only mess with the global and the light. So under the global wheel, we'll go to the exposure slider and just crank this way up. You can really push the limits of this slider because 16mm film just has so much information to work with, especially with these scans. So I'm going to go to the point right where I see the highlights kind of start to blow out or just get a little bit too bright, which I'd say is right around there maybe. And then we're going to go over to the highlights tab, this light wheel. Just bring the information in the highlights down a little bit. Bring some of that information back, excuse me. And that looks pretty good right there. So you can already see, I mean, we're in really good shape. The colors are popping, contrast is solid. This looks like some beautiful 16mm film footage already. You could honestly call this good, but we'll go and we'll just do a couple more minor adjustments here. I'll cool it off just a little bit because it was the middle of the day, so I want this shot to reflect that. And then maybe just add a little bit of contrast back into it, just considering I'm on this high contrast and saturated display. And there we go. That looks good to me. So that's pretty much my process. every time I color correct a 16mm film shot. So one thing you can do if you feel like the look is overall just a little bit too intense, too saturated, punchy, and you don't want to go through and adjust the saturation and contrast and all the separate items, you can go over to this key tab right here, and the key output, you can adjust the gain, and that's just gonna basically increase or decrease the intensity of whatever you have applied to that node. So here we have the LUT and all of our various effects applied. So if we want to, we could lower this down, and that's going to blend the original image with what we've done with the node. So that might give a little bit more of a natural look. If you want to bring that down to like 0.885 or something like that, that might provide a little bit more of a natural, less intense look. But again, I'm on this super high contrasty saturated display, so I would probably actually just leave it the way that it was, but I can understand that why that looks a little bit too intense for a lot of people. So just balance your display and make sure that you know kind of what to expect when it comes to the screen that you're editing on. I briefly want to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, which is RecoverIt. Have you ever lost files due to a failed or damaged hard drive, accidental formatting, a virus attack, or corrupted disks? These are just some of the over 500 scenarios that RecoverIt can help with. RecoverIt is an advanced data recovery software that can recover your lost files, videos, photos, emails, audio, and more. RecoverIt also has a no data, no charge commitment. This means you can free scan your device to see which files are recoverable before having to make any payment at all. RecoverIt supports over 1,000 file formats, over 2,000 storage devices, and has a 95% recovery rate. To use RecoverIt, just head over to the recoverit.wondershare.com website and click the download button. Once installed, load it up and select the storage location you need to recover from. Scan your device and recover your data. It's as easy as that. Check out the link in the description to try RecoverIt for free. So we'll jump on to the next clip. This is 500T underexposed pretty heavily under some tungsten light. Go ahead and add a node here. You should have a node by default, but I deleted all mine for the purpose of this video. So Option S on Mac is how to quickly add a node. And again, we'll right click, go to LUT, find that conversion LUT, and then apply it. Now you can see here, this one's looking a little bit more gnarly. The skin tones are very red. Kind of look like aliens a little bit, but we'll fix this right up. Now this was underexposed, so it's going to be hard to get this image looking as it should have, as I intended it to look when I shot it, but just dealing with the lighting situations that I had that night, I shot this wide open. This is the best I could really do, unfortunately. So again, we'll go over to the HDR tab, grab this global exposure slider, bring that way up. You can see the shadows are pretty blue and purple. We'll try to fix that in a little bit. And you got some highlights maybe blowing out a little bit, so you can play with this highlight slider if you want to, just to see if there's any real bright areas. It doesn't really look like there is, so all that information is going to be in the light wheel, like her dress and stuff. So I'm just going to leave that as is. Now we'll go over to this color web right here, the color warper, because this is going to help bring back that color in the skin tones, make it look a little bit more natural. Grab this top right one up in the red because we're dealing with some gnarly red colors. So grab this red button right here and we'll just drag it down a little bit. And you can already see like those skin tones are looking much more natural. Just like that. Super simple. And then we'll go into our primaries and maybe cool it off a little bit. Just a tad. And that's going to make those shadows a little bit more blue, but we can go into the lift wheel right here and drag the blue slider down. That's going to get rid of some of that blue tint, the shadows. You can see that there. That's looking pretty good. And then maybe add just a little bit of purple into the image. Things are looking a tad bit green overall, but for the most part, right there is pretty solid. This light was super warm to begin with. The tungsten light, the chandelier up on the ceiling. So this is a pretty accurate reflection of what it looked like in real life, especially considering this shot was underexposed a bit. So I'm pretty happy with the way this looks right here, and I'd call it good on that. Moving on to the 500T shot in daylight. super blue looking, might be kind of intimidating, but I promise it's really not hard to fix this. So once again, we'll add our LUT in. Now if you want to not have to click this, right click this and add the LUT in manually each time, all you have to do is get a node that just has the LUT applied and nothing else. Command C, copy that, and then just go to each clip and just apply it, or you can batch select these clips and apply it to every one so it'll be ready to go when we get to each one of these clips. So back to this 500T shot, we have our LUT applied, so we'll go to our HDR section, grab the global slider and just bring that brightness up to where it starts to look pretty good, which is, I'd say, right around there, and then maybe bring the highlights down a little bit, just a touch. So it's bright, it's looking pretty solid in that regard. Now we'll have to correct this blue tint, and watch this. This is the beauty of a good quality scan and the information you can retain with 16mm film. Watch this. We'll just drag this slider a little bit to the right, well, maybe a lot to the right, but there we go. Colors are looking nice and warm and natural and beautiful again, and that's pretty much all you have to do for this clip. I mean, maybe things are looking a little soft, so we could add some contrast back in. Maybe there's a little bit, some harsh reds going on in the skin tones, just a little bit, so we can go back to the color web here, the warper, and just drag that down. Now those skin tones look more natural, and yeah, you could play with the tint a little bit if you think things look a little green or purple, you know, maybe it's a little purple, so I'll add some green in the tint side, and we're good to go. So I'm talking about, it's kind of fun. You're like revealing a painting or something. I don't know. That was a dumb analogy probably, but you get what I'm saying. All right, so next we got 500T in mixed lighting. So we got this kind of weird green tint over the footage. So our LUT's already applied because I batch applied it to the rest of the clips. So we'll just go do the normal process. High dynamic range, HDR tab, global slider, bring that brightness way up, find a good part in the clip that is going to reflect that brightness. Right there is good. All right, seems solid. We can kind of scrub through it, make sure no parts are too bright, which they aren't. Beautiful. Don't need to bring the highlights down at all because things are looking pretty solid on that end. So now we're just going to correct this green part, which we'll just get some purple back into the frame, back into the image, and then cool it off a little bit because things are looking a tad bit warm. So just bring it down like that, and that looks really natural all the way through these shots. His arm maybe looks a little bit too red, so once again we'll just grab this color warper, top left button up here in the reds, and bring it down, and now his skin tones look much more natural, and I'd say this shot is good to go. So I mean, this can be as quick as 30 seconds for each clip, you know, depending on exactly what the lighting situation is and how you expose the shot, but it's a really simple process to get pretty solid looking images out of your film scans, and these are definitely, you know, perfectly presentable videos for social media purposes, or, you know, sharing with your family or something like that. So you have this mountain goat shot up in the Enchantments, Washington State. We got the LUT applied. You know, things are always a little bit dark, that's what I've found, so just bring that slider way up. Maybe the rock and the clouds over here a little bit washed out highlight wise, so I'll just bring that information back in the highlights. When you bring highlight information back by sliding this slider to the left, you're gonna lose a little bit of contrast, so you can add that contrast back into the image right here. I like to do it in the primaries primaries tab, adding my contrast back. I don't do that in the HDR tab because it does weird things to the clips from my experience. So looking a little warm. It was the middle of the day, so the lighting wasn't that warm, so we'll cool it off just a little bit, and there we go. Mountain goat and beautiful 16mm. Looks good. All right, now my cousin hiking the enchantments from the same day, 50D again, middle of the day. Same process. Global slider, drag it up. Highlights just about blown out right there, so we'll retain some of that info by dragging the light slider down. I'll wait for him to turn his face around here, see what his skin tones are looking like. Overall, pretty solid, maybe a tad bit red, so we'll just bring this down ever so slightly. And that looks pretty good right there. And then, once again, a little warm, so cool things off a little bit. A little bit soft since we retain that highlight info, so we'll just drag the contrast up. When you drag the contrast up, you can see kind of the red skin tones come out a little bit more, so you might have to jump back into your color warper and just play with this, play with the red section, just bring things down to a spot that looks good to your eye, but that looks pretty good to me. All the way through. Maybe it's a little green, so we'll just add some purple tint to it, and then I'd say that shot is solid. All right, this is 50D, early morning, dark, underexposed. Shot this wide open. That's all I could do. But I mean, watch this. All you have to do, drag this slider up, and you're pretty. I mean, you can. This is already looking fantastic. I'm gonna add a little bit of purple to the tint, just because things are looking a little green. You know, maybe a lot of purple. About 30 right there, looks good. And then warm it up a tad. Maybe add some contrast. And there you go. That's what I'd do with that clip. Alright, next one, 50D again. More enchantments. We got a squirrel. This one is just brightness up. Bring the highlights down a little bit. Contrast. And I'd say that's good to go. Super natural looking colors. I'd just run with that. And then the last clip from the enchantments, also dark before the sun came up. 50D. Got Abby here. We got some skin tones that we'll have to watch out for, so we'll see how this process goes with the skin tones. Don't want to get them too red or purple. Dragging the slider up to, you know, it is somewhat dark. I was going too bright. Right about there looks pretty good. Gonna add some contrast into this shot. Now with the contrast, things look a little green, so we'll add some purple tint, just a tad. Maybe warm it up a little bit. You can see her face got a little bit pink and a little bit red. Now it was kind of a brisk morning, so we had some, you know, our faces were actually red, but this looks a little bit intense. But again, it's probably because of my display. So I actually would probably end up leaving this, but just for demonstrational purposes, I'll show you about bringing this red tint kind of down in her skin tones. Again, this color web thing, color warper, is a real lifesaver when it comes to making the skin tones look natural again. But there we go. That looks pretty good to me. Maybe a tad bit of warmth, a little bit more, and there we go. So that's it, guys. Those are the 9 clips, different lighting situations, but yeah, I mean, overall, it's really simple to color correct your 16mm film footage if you get quality scans, which Nicholas Coyle does a great job of delivering. So if you have any questions, tips, feedback, constructive criticism, and want to politely let me know in the comment section, you're more than welcome to. I hope this was informational. I hope you learned a thing or two. I'm going to try to put out some more videos and content revolving around 16mm film, because shit kicks ass, okay? This stuff is, 16mm is amazing to shoot, to edit. If you have a computer that can handle these scans, they're a bit intensive, but you can always just render out a ProRes 422 file and then edit that. That's what I had to do before I got this new computer. But yeah, any questions about 16mm, I'll do my best to answer them. I'm by no means an expert, but shot good amount of rolls and I've edited quite a bit of footage from 16mm cameras. So that'll be it for this video, guys. again, I hope it helped, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.